Arcane isn't just a show. It's a moving, breathing painting where every frame tells a deeper story. Every frame drips with intention and emotion. In this video, we'll slow things down, in fact pause, and take a closer look at the still moments, frames that could hang in an art gallery, yet also speak volumes about the world, the characters, relationships, and stories they carry. This is every frame a story, a visual journey through Arcane, where beauty meets meaning, and silence says the most. For the sake of this video, my intention was to initially follow the story arc by arc and pick 10 stills per act, but episode 1 alone provided more than enough to work with. So imagine this is a museum of arcane art, and I'm the tour. First shot I want to discuss probably hardly comes as a surprise. The very first scene of Arcane served not only as an allegory, but also as grounds for everything that followed. Apart from Powder's singing, barely any words were spoken. Yet this frame screams with meaning. The first scene of Arcane did not open with action, it opened with consequences. Among the smoke, the silence of conflict brutally suppressed. We see Vi and Powder walking through the wreckage of war. Then comes Vander, by far not a hero, but rather a man broken by violence, which in these moments he chose to give up on. This very still shows not just the aftermath of his and Silco's revolution, which at this point we knew nothing about. Most of all, we saw a man that had to face what his own decision brought to him in the most brutal way possible, by seeing two little girls, now orphaned by his friends. His choice to lay down his gauntlets and carry the girls, even more so to raise them, is the show's first and most important lesson: the rejection of vengeance in favor of love and protection, something every single Arcane character seeked at one point or another, but especially Powder and Vi. It's also the very moment that defines Vander and set the central tension of the story in motion. The fragile peace between Piltover and Zon, built on tears and death, the resentment between classes, and the trauma the next generation has to carry. It's all locked within single still. What this picture really tells us though is that it's not just an origin story. It's an actual warning. In a world built on violence, choosing peace like Vander does might just be the most challenging act of all. From the brutal conflict that really only led to more death and destruction, we travel to the present. Leaving trauma of war and Vander's quiet vow of peace behind, we move towards a striking visual contrast. Vi and Powder standing on a rooftop, overlooking Piltover in broad daylight. The city glows, clearly prosperous, vibrant, even victorious, clean and untouched by the violence we have previously witnessed. We look at this view almost in awe, through the eyes of children who seem to be seeing this like a promise of something better to come. The sisters gaze up at the city that stands both literally and symbolically above them. Clear divide between Piltover and Zon is not just geographical, it's economical, political, maybe most of all social. From this angle, Piltover looks perfect, idealized and distant. However, us, the viewers, we are determined to question that illusion because of what we were already shown before. It would be a mistake to see this as anything other than injustice. A sad moment which Vi treats as an opportunity to get more, despite the fact she should be allowed more without having to fight for it. There is a clear path that lines up just before her. Rooftops create almost an entrance into what, as we know now, will one day be her home. Now, despite its colors, the grandness of Piltover, this scene is, however, a breath of tragedy. Sisters might have been saved by Vander, but they have been saved into a world that doesn't provide much for them. In the chaos of the heist, Powder pauses. She notices something glowing, still but alive, Hextech crystal. The scene slows down and her face shows signs of not just awe, but also interest. Looking back from the perspective of Season 2, Episode 7, we know now it's her scientifical curiosity. It's also one of the very first Arcane shots that hints at Powder's duality, her own self in a reflection, perhaps seeing more than us, the viewers. Blue light flickers in her eyes, mirroring the crystal's shimmer, visual connection between this unstable, mysterious object and herself. Visually, the contrast is grand. Powder, born in the shadows of Zone, staring into a fragment of raw arcane powers, polished and not meant for her, yet going out to her maybe with a promise. We know, however, that forces behind gemstones stood equally for both creation and destruction, invention and demolition. But her fixation with this object at this point at least isn't even about ambition, it's about wonder, possibility, something that would make her matter more, that would place her on a map, mocked by her friends. Having only Vander and Vi believing in her, she sees an opportunity. Soon enough we will learn though that power in the wrong hands, even innocent ones, can ruin things. This is the spark that begins Powder's transformation from overlooked to obsessed, from curious to cursed. Hextech in Arcane stands for more than just technological breakthrough. It stands for ambition that reaches beyond limits and doesn't mind the costs. For Victor, it represented salvation, way to escape his fragile body. And for Powder, it became a key to be seen until it helped her turning into Jinx. The very next frame is one that probably looks like a painting the most. Its composition, dramatic lightning, frozen motion and emotional intensity almost resemble a Renaissance picture. Each figure posing in expressive motion while Powder, at the center, becomes a tragic point with fragile light on top of her. One could think of The Massacre of Innocence by Paul Rubin that gives a similar vibe. Powder holds the lute while her friends fight around her, in a visually expressive moment that foreshadows much of her arc. She freezes, holding on to the prize they have stolen, while the chaos of the fight unfolds around her. Everything moves in slow motion. A violin score plays over, mirroring Powder's inner state. Behind her, there's a blocked door. There seems to be no way out for her, literally and symbolically. Visually, she is framed as small, isolated, and overwhelmed. The fight, though, happening only steps away, feels distant to her, feeding her disconnection. And not just from the violence, but from the strength the others display. She is surrounded by motion, yet paralyzed. The very center of this still, yet emotionally away. The violin plays an important part in Powder's symbolism overall. For now, it's a slow representation of her fear and sense of helplessness. Later, as her mental state declines, the violin becomes sharp, a chaotic reflecting her psyche. In this moment, instrument becomes Powder's voice. We can hear her even if she cannot speak. This moment, though quiet, visually sums up her emotional state. An outsider even with her friends, burdened with something valuable she doesn't know how to carry. It's a haunting symbol of the internal conflict that will shape her transformation. Now, this might not be an obvious shot. Perhaps many would choose the moment when Vi captures Powder about to fall instead. One that is telling us a story of how their support is unconditional. But I wanted to focus on a still that challenges that supportive moment. As the group descends back from the heists, camera locks on Vi's face. Her expression shows a mix of frustration, a disappointment and contemplation. It's not just about the failure of the mission. It's more personal. Her face tells a story about the weight of her doubt. Powder is in the background, out of focus, but her insecurity is visible. She is trying to read her sister, hoping for comfort, but despite previously supportive words, Vi doesn't turn back to her. That lack of affirmation speaks volumes and serves as one of their first fallouts. Physical distance between them is symbolic. They're in a small space, but emotionally far away. This is the very first moment that captures a fracture. Glimpse of Vi's doubt about Powder's readiness, her ability to keep up and not jeopardize others. Up until that point, Vi has been nothing but protective of her little sister. But the failed heist and the consequences forced a moment of realism. There is a green light illuminating her face, Zone's metropolitan glow that underlines her expression. It's not just about Powder, it's about the fact the Vi heist was about gaining more, becoming more, and it did not happen because of her sister. Vi's face in that very moment suggests a calculation. She wants to believe in Powder, but doubt is creeping up. It is subtle, but deliberate. Her disappointment isn't just in Powder's performance. It's in the growing realization that her loyalty might come into conflict with responsibility, and her own desire to better her situation. In other words, this is the seed of tragedy. From now on, Powder will feel that subtle distancing. Vi begins to pull away without meaning to, Quiet as it is, this very frame echoes through the rest of the season, if not the entire show. Using silence, shadow and light, the nuance of facial expression foreshadows sisters' fallout before a single word is even spoken. We're staying in zone. As the elevator stops and the gates open, we move from the discomfort of failure into a scene that's visually rich, chaotic, posing with life and iconic. Zone in its glory. This frame focuses on the group from behind, giving a wide perspective of their silhouettes stepping off the elevator into the decadent world of Zone. Its fluorescent colors contrasting with previous shot of them overlooking Piltover's rooftops. Zone immediately swallows them. It's a world of walkways, pipes, and neon signs. The color palette is vastly differing from one we saw back in Piltover. It's toxic, yet gripping. It feels like it's both doomed and full of life. It's dirty, but this still seems to be telling us it's their home. Even though nothing is said, the group dynamic shifted. Vi and Powder are visually contrasted. While Vi is leading, pushing forward into the world she feels she might just be forever stuck in. Powder is pacing behind, weighed down by failure and still longing for reassurance. It's a moment that marks the transition from illusion to reality. The heist is over, and so is the dream of being like the Topsiders. Successful and being allowed to follow their potential. They're Zonites again. It's also a moment of deceptive calm. While Zone might feel both stylish, industrial and dangerous, it conceals the emotional shift that is still quietly sitting within Vi, and especially inside Powder. It's a brutal kind of reality check. Emotions that build up within Vi explode in her confrontation with Vander as she challenges his reasons to, in her opinion, remaining passive and allowing this oppressive situation to dominate their lives and lessen their possibilities. Visually the setting is warm, but ambience between them is heavy. This frame places Vander and Vi facing each other, both lit harshly, emphasizing the lines of their faces. Their poses are mirrored, Vi defiant and offensive, Vander firm, but towering over her like a man carrying too much on his shoulders. For Vi, this isn't just rebellion, it's a cry for purpose and for action. Vander doesn't flinch. He knows why Vi is angry. He has been there before, and in fact deep down he probably even agrees. But he also knows the cost of asking these questions. This still stands for ideological clash between two generations and what they carry. Vi is the symbol of anger driven by both the fresh humiliation of the heist and the sense of injustice as a result of living beneath Piltover. She wants to fight back and take risks. She wants Vander to validate these feelings. In contrast, Vander is the wounded protector. He has seen blood, he has lost people, and he's determined never to repeat that mistake, especially being now a father figure. What seems to be a family picture hanging between them, reminding what's at stake. To her, it looks like a submission. To him, it's strategy, a faulty but necessary compromise. It's not just a personal conflict between them two. It's a generational tension. Impatience clashing with experience. Someone else's shadow that Vi brings up might as well stand for Piltover, but also for Silco, who in many ways is part of the situation as it stands. This moment is about so much more than a failed heist. It's about both the future of Zone in wider perspective, and future of Vi, she refuses to agree to. The moment when Vander and Grayson sit in Benzo's shop to discuss their uneasy truce is probably not an obvious choice. But it is one of the quietest yet most symbolically charged scenes in this episode. The stillness and their shared posture tell us about the moral burdens and the complexity of their relation. They are two protectors, facing a chaos that was laid upon them. Like most moments in Zone, this one also happens in cluttered, dimly lit space, with warm tones. Each time that visual choice is supposed to contrast the sterile, institutional world of Piltover just above versus what Zonites created despite lack of options. Camera frames Vander and Grayson on equal ground, both looking slightly down like two fallen leaders. This symmetry mirrors their roles as guardians of a fragile peace, sitting on opposite sides of the economic divide. Both are protectors that carry the burden of violence they're trying to avoid. This shot shows fatigue, unspoken respect, pragmatism, compromise, and necessity of their by far not ideal deal. They are trying to maintain a version of peace that's unsustainable. It's almost idealism that had to turn into realism. Almost a delay of an outburst and not a resolution. It feels prophetic. What haunts me most in this still is the fact that both these characters are trying to prevent war, neither of them survives. In a way, the more you look at this frame, the more you see they're defeated and grieving over what they sense might come. A confrontation they have been both trying so very hard to avoid. It's a tragic serenity, protectors bound by duty, recognizing that the storm bigger than them is ahead. In one of the last stills of episode 1, Vi stands tall, strong, confident, a protector just like Vander that is already carrying the weight of leadership and parenthood. In contrast, Powder sits down, small, fragile, looking for safety. The poses they assumed feel like a dialogue where responsibility meets vulnerability. Hope meets insecurity. Vi, at this point, is still like a shield, a wall between Powder and the world. They both see the same view right in front of them, but it feels like Powder sees it through Vi's eyes. This moment also stands in contrast between similar view from the very beginning of this episode, where Vi and Powder overlooked Piltover right before the heist. It's the same perspective as we see the same building, but now from afar. It differs though. Before the heist, they were both standing. The day was bright and sky clear. Their mood was hopeful. They were dreaming together, and it was the very same dream. Once the heist failed and Vi had to be taught a lesson about responsibility, mood shifted. Now Vi stands, but Powder sits. The city glows in distance, but they're in the shadow. It's a lonely moment. The most interesting aspect of this frame though is again Vi's posture. Before she was facing a path created by the roofs towards Piltover. Now in the distance you can see the river, and the way Vi stands almost forms a bridge between both sides of the city. A bridge we know she will symbolically become. At this point though, it still feels like they both stand in Piltover's shadows. To Vi, it represents possibility, but to Powder it's overwhelming. This frame in many ways tells the story before it even happens. Vi will rise and move forward. Powder will stay behind. Final shot that made the selection from episode 1 could just be my favorite. Silco, revealed to the viewers for the very first time, seated alone in the darkness, framed in a symmetrical still. He isn't moving. He's waiting like a predator hunting their victim. In fact, he doesn't even need to move to establish the sense of power or domination. The way he looks at us breaking the fourth wall is confrontational. It's uncomfortable. He's not just being introduced, he's looking back at you. He is placed in deep shadow with a yellow industrial light glowing from the right, seemingly warm, but not comforting at all. It feels toxic. Plants that anywhere else in Zone would represent innocence and hope, here feel clinical, unnaturally trapped in captivity. Silco's red eye glows, vengeful, symbol of duality of his character, who was once a kind man, now corrupted. Silco is a threat quietly simmering in the dark. The stairs behind him provide a sense of entering some kind of an underworld, on the other hand suggesting his plans of reaching out for power and domination up ahead. Silco's introduction also provides a religious subcontext, like a devil at confession waiting to be worshipped, or maybe more so, feared. He stands for the power that Vander tried hard to bury. He's waiting. He's plotting. He's the very essence of the faulty compromise and buried violence Grayson and Vander fought for, like a spreading infection. Intimidating, yet intriguing. Now that's it when it comes to Season 1, Episode 1. Let me know if you want me to go for Episode 2 and let me know your favorite shots. Looking forward to hearing from you guys. Major shout out to my patrons as always. Stay safe guys. Bye.